Have you ever had an idea that sticks in your head, that just won't go away, that nags at you and stays with you until you do it? I feel like that's what this video is. This is the telling of a story that I've carried with me for 10 years now. I'm haunted by this story. Every time I think I've moved on, anytime I think maybe I've started to forget, it'll just hit me full in the face again one day, demanding to be remembered. These are events that touched me like no other, that influenced me in such a crucial way, that I know I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for these events. I've carried the story for 10 years, largely untold to even my close family. It's not some big secret, but I never really knew how to tell it. This story is not the kind of thing that just comes up in casual conversation. So I've kept silent. Talked about it to almost no one. But I'm done holding this inside. It's time for me to at least try to make it available to whomever might be interested. This story centers around a small community of gamers. The game we played together wasn't an artistic masterpiece. It didn't have a compelling narrative or amazing graphics or any of the usual trappings of video game success. But what it did have was a community that came together and created something amazing, something unique, something I don't know if I'll ever find the like of again, but I will always be grateful to have been a part of. This is a story that deserves to be told. The story of a guild who called themselves Solidarity. This is the story of my time playing Mabinogi. These are events that took place in 2008 and 2009. I was a 19-year-old college student. And in order to understand what was so remarkable about my time with Mabinogi, you have to understand a bit about me first and where I was at that time in my life. I grew up very socially sheltered. I was homeschooled, and while there are plenty of programs for socializing homeschooled kids, I never really took part in those. When I was a teenager, I really wanted nothing more than to form those social relationships, but I had a great deal of difficulty doing so, whether in real life or online. I felt a real anxiety about reaching out back then. I was scared. In Mabinogi, I found a certain charm. There were dungeons and all your typical fantasy MMO trappings. There was nothing that unique, but something about it stuck with me. I wanted to have the best experience I could with this new game. To make the effort. I wanted to try to go beyond just a pickup party to run a dungeon and then never see those people again. The game was only an open beta at that time. That may have been part of it, seeing the opportunity to kind of get in on the ground floor or something, and I don't know. But for some reason, the game captured my imagination in a way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. But I knew I wanted to invest in this. I noticed a thread on the game forums. A call for interest in role-playing in Mabinogi. Someone was looking to form a role-playing guild on Molly's server. I was intrigued by the roleplay idea. in role-playing, I could present myself as another fictional character instead of exposing the real me, which I was scared to do. For those who may not know, that's basically what role-playing is. Playing the role of another character, speaking as that character, acting as that character, telling a story through the character. Instead of talking to people in-game as yourself, you can instead talk as this character that you created, you invented. You can put a face on, a mask you might say. I thought there could be a comfort in that. And it would make it easier for me to take the steps to interact. I was very interested. I even posted on the thread saying so. But there was a problem. I wasn't on Molly's server. I had created a character and played on the Riley server. Shouldn't have been a big problem. I'd only been playing the game for a few days. The game was still an open beta even. I don't know why I didn't just hop servers. I could have created a character on Molly and joined up with these people. It would have been the easy thing to do. I could have joined what was clearly going to be a popular, successful guild. Would have had the opportunity to participate if I wanted, with the safety net of just being another face in the crowd if I wanted to disappear. For reasons I can't explain though, I didn't do that. For some reason, I wanted to make this happen on the Riley server. And it wasn't long before I created my own forum thread. A similar topic specifically geared to the Riley players. I thought we just need someone to start something. It certainly wasn't going to be me. Even in that first forum post, I said, I don't feel I would make a good leader. And I made up an excuse about time commitments preventing me. But I know it essentially said, hey, I think this would be a great thing. I'm interested. And if other people are also interested, can we make this happen? I'm willing to help. Someone else has to be leader. Is there anyone who will step up? And there was someone. I wasn't alone. I started coordinating with another player who reached out to me, calling themselves Arena. And Arena wasn't really interested in leading a guild either. They had led role-playing guilds before in other games, and they told me that they certainly understood why I may not want to. They warned of drama, knowing there could be issues, knowing what can happen. Things that I hadn't even really thought of, but I was happy to accept the excuses. In the end, despite their own reluctance, Arena did say they would be willing to lead. After all, someone has to, and we both really wanted this thing to happen. Though Arena did want help. If I wasn't going to lead, then they wanted me to at least assist them as an officer. And I realized that I kind of liked the idea of being an officer in a guild. I'd been in guilds before in other games, and I'd always just faded into the crowd. That was comfortable for me. But I also knew it was lonely. I thought, well, if I was an officer, I've got to be at least somewhat popular, right? At least a little bit. Everyone knows who the officers are. So it sounded like a great plan. But I had the thought, if I accept that I'm willing to be an officer, why is it that I don't want to be a leader? And after some soul searching, I realized it's because I didn't want to be held responsible. I didn't want to make decisions and then have people point to me when they failed. But is that the kind of person I want to be? Someone who is afraid of responsibility, who shies away from it? No, I decided I didn't want that. I wanted to be a person better than that. So yeah, never done role-playing before, never been an active and engaged member of a guild before, I had never done any of this before. I was completely lacking the social skills to do this, to be a leader. I had no business doing this. But I said I would. I would start and lead the guild. And it still boggles my mind that I said that. We went forward with it, Arena and I. We organized an in-game meeting with prospective guild members to talk about a few things, figure out a bit more about what the guild would actually look like, what policies would be. At that time, we didn't even have a name for it. I don't remember how many people showed to that first meeting. I want to say it was 8 to 10 people. I do still remember the question about name. I really had no ideas. But someone stepped forward. I believe it was Tume, but I'm not certain. But one of the members-to-be suggested the perfect name for what we wanted. We had decided that, as a guild, our purpose was to help each other, to band together to explore this new world. So the name Solidarity was chosen to represent that. That's what we wanted with each other. Solidarity. A cohesive, unified group. And I approved of the name. I announced that I was going to form the guild and that Arena would be my second. And, oh, where is Arena? They had disappeared in the middle of the meeting. The one person I'd been courting with up to now disappears without warning or message. It was extra weird when later I was browsing the game forums and saw they made a post that they decided to switch characters. They had made a new character with a new name. And when I looked up the new character, they had joined another guild, all without any message to me about it. They had my email, they could have messaged me in-game with the forums, but they had sent nothing. I ended up reaching out, sending them an email, asking about it, and they offered some excuses that never really made any sense. I never got a good answer. I don't know what happened with them, but it feels like bullet dodged, I guess? Certainly seems like a good thing I didn't go through with making them leader. In any case, Arena ended up not being a part of the guild at all. Now I'm on my own. As if I wasn't unqualified enough, now I'm the one and only officer, without any trusted support. And it all seemed to happen mostly by accident. And yet, somehow, it worked. People in the guild stepped up. They were offering great advice and working together remarkably well. Fundelmar particularly distinguished himself, and I soon named him Guild Submaster. We immediately went to work to upgrade and level the guild within the game to expand our max member cap. And we did. We grew and we grew. The game was an adventure to be discovered. The vast majority of the game world was totally unknown to us. It was small. The game had a system of things, seal stones, that no one could go past. Not anyone in the server until someone accomplished whatever it was that allowed them to break the seal. And every stone, every seal, had different requirements. The thing was, the game was so new that at the time, no one had broken more than maybe 1 or 2. And it was always a major event whenever a new seal was broken because the very limited world opened up a bit more. And during that time, waiting for someone to break a stone, a lot of what we did was make our own fun together as a guild. We were constantly active, talking to each other in the guild chat. We became a very close-linked community very quickly. Word began to spread, we were constantly at member cap and had a waiting list for new members. And characters started to really develop. We had great fun with in-character roleplay. Whenever guild members met up in person, it was generally mostly in-character interaction and talk. But also in global guild chat, there was more out-of-character chatter there. And it was a great experience getting to know both these characters that people had created, and also the person that had made the character. Those times were the most enjoyable times. I want to make it clear that this story is not just a story about how I had a lot of fun one time. This is a lot more meaningful than that. I'm getting there. But the lead up to that, this time, was more fun than I've ever had. I mean, if you wanted me to pick the best hour of gaming, single hour, that I've ever had, that would probably be sometime some game that I played with my brother.
Yeah, you combine Hellstone with
this might be
Nightmare.
Hellstone.
It
Yes,
glows.
Hellstone, and it releases lava when you mine it. Ow.
Oh,
Ow. But if you want the best week, 2 weeks, month, season, year, this is it. 100%, no question, no equivocation. Doesn't matter if you're talking tabletop gaming, pen and paper role-playing games, or any game whatsoever of any sort I've ever played at any time. Those early days of Solidarity was something so special, so magical. And it was something we really made ourselves. We even made our own events in-game. For example, one such event, my character, Kaeda, was kidnapped. And the event was the whole guild coming together to figure out what happened, rescue her, and follow the series of clues, interrogate non-player characters, NPCs, that were really just me on another account. But they could interact with, just like you would in, a tabletop role-playing game. But we did it through this MMO. And we continued to grow together and connect through many such shared experiences and guild events. They weren't always as elaborate as, the guild leader has been kidnapped, but, we had cookouts and campfire chats and just regular things to bring us all together. I remember another time I had come up with a storyline for a future event which called for there to be a traitor within the guild. So I created a brand new character, took them through our new member process. I let Oren, who at that time handled most of our new player applications, I let him know what I was doing, but he was the only one who knew. No one else in the guild knew this new member was really me, or what I was planning. One evening, shortly after the traitor-to-be joined, a group of us went through one of the early dungeons together. Kiara Dungeon, I believe it was. In this case, largely to get to know the new member, quote-unquote. And that's the sort of thing that happened often, running large groups through a dungeon just for the social aspect. Not because it was necessary for any game progression. Kiara was a beginner dungeon. Our group was way overkill for it. But I went through not only as the new member, but also as Kaeda at the same time. So there were like 8 people in this dungeon, and 2 of them were me. I know I played horribly while trying to multi-box 2 characters at once. Because Kaeda was so overpowered for that dungeon, no one really watched her too close anyway, which worked for me. They knew she could take care of herself, but in reality I used a lot of healing potions that I wouldn't normally have had to use. But the other character, the new player, so to speak, the would-be traitor, really played like a newbie character who didn't know what they were doing, because I was so busy managing both computers at once. It was actually a really lucky break for me. I had people trying to teach me how to play the game, how to be better at the combat system, monster tells to look for, how to respond to different enemy behaviors. The kind of thing that I had taught a lot of these people details about myself in the past, and now they're teaching it back to me, thinking I was a new player. At least I knew it meant my trick was working. And after the dungeon, we went to one of the guild's favorite hangout spots, which was nearby. The meeting tree, I like to call it. Made a campfire. Not for any in-game purpose, just pure roleplay. Other people from the guild came in from all across the game world. Now we may have had, 16, 18 people just sitting around a campfire talking. Socializing with each other, getting to know the new member. Pulled it off perfectly. No one else in the entire guild knew the new member was really me, even after hours chatting together. I remember that night being so much fun. Talking as 4 people at once. My character, Kaede, myself, out of character, the traitor character, and the new player of that character. Went on for a few hours between that dungeon run and the gathering afterwards, and completely sold it. When the traitor finally revealed himself later in a special guild event, it was such a shock for people. An epic moment for the guild. No one had any idea that, effectively, this person had been an NPC the whole time. People loved it. In the retelling, I can tell, it sounds like it could have backfired, but it worked really well. And that's just one example. These things are going on all the time. Maybe not that elaborate, but there was real creativity shown by many people. Even those that didn't develop storylines to that extent grew and had interesting interactions over time. And of course, all these people coming together led to conflict sometimes. It would occasionally lead to drama, like you're going to have with any group of people eventually. But everyone was so reasonable and really wanted to work it out for quite some time. It sounds like I'm painting a real nostalgic view of it, and in some sense, I am. In researching for this video, I went through a lot of my old private messages. I saw some stuff there that I'd forgotten. Times I wasn't a good leader. I jumped to wrong conclusions, was overly confrontational with those I thought were sources of problems. Some things I wish I could apologize for now. But during this time, they helped and supported me. On the whole, it was a wonderful time, and I grew tremendously as a person. Of course, all good things must eventually come to an end. It didn't last forever. Particularly, I remember waking up one day and just feeling kind of like this was a mistake. We grew too much, or at least too fast. We were at 50 some odd members in the guild at that time, I think, and I had the thought that we were good at 30, maybe even 25. We were about twice as big as we really should have been. There had been some drama in the guild, and it seemed like drama was getting more and more common. You can even see that in my screenshot logs. I've got hundreds of screenshots, and the later on they go, the more they are not as much of fun times with the guild, lucky things that happened, or interesting sights within the game. More and more are screenshots of chat logs. Pictures that I took to have a record of what was going on, in case it had to be referenced, shared with another officer, or whatever. Stuff that happens when you have a larger community. Nothing that unusual from any successful guild, I'm sure. But I did find myself wanting less and less with the guild as a whole, and more with a tighter group of people, most of whom had been there since near the beginning. I'd still tried to make sure I had plenty of interactions with everyone in the guild. One of the major problems we had was people devolving into little cliques, and I tried to lead by example to not get caught in that too much, but in private messages and chats, I had my own inner circle, naturally, and it wasn't entirely for the worse. Part of this resulted in getting an even deeper connection with a select group of people. They were there to help. We had more officers and started to have more of a system of support, so it wasn't all me for mediation. And by this time, those real friendships had started to develop. A few people come to mind particularly. As a very much incomplete list, I think of Fiala, and Rinchia, and Oren, and Uvana, Tsume, Fundelmer, Yashi, Samorp, Lissa, and Athari. And I know there are others, but for someone who went from nobody and feeling incapable of making friends to such a list, I can't even name them all. And there are others, of course, that I had connection with who helped me, but those I mentioned were some of the most frequent, consistent, day after day support and real friends. And real issues, life problems began to come out in our talks, and we were able to help each other through them, at least a little bit. Especially, I know, Minchia and Fiala and Samorp, where it's been hours and hours, many of them at this point outside of the game. We exchanged AOL instant messenger handles, which seems weird to say now in 2020, but that's what we used. Often hours after I logged off the game, I'd stay on AIM and just talk with them. At this point in time, we'd talk about everything. We'd talk about school, about life, talk about personal struggles. And that's when I really started to realize what solidarity meant. I'm torn at this point in the video. I don't want to go into too many details, but this I'm about to talk about is a large part of why this is still with me. I will never be at liberty to discuss some of the things that we helped each other through. By way of example, one night I literally stayed up past 2 a.m. speaking with a friend who was suicidal that night. I don't know if anything would have happened to them had I not been there. Absolutely don't know that. But that's kind of the point. I don't know. And that's a scary thought. And they weren't the only person. It wasn't always as deep and dark as suicide, but it was real hurt. It was abuse, self-harm, depression, hurting people. I had been very sheltered up to this time, and it really affected me. I don't mean my eyes were open to how the world really is. I wasn't that naive. But it was a lot for me to be confronted with at the time. But help and solace was found for these people. We were a support structure. I'd be there talking with a friend, and often they would also be talking about the same topic with one or two others in the guild as well. I know it solved no one's problems, but it definitely helped. It was a safe place where people who had no one to turn to in their quote-unquote real life could find the support they needed. Whether they were struggling with psychological issues, relationships, or just general pressures of life or death. It seemed almost any topic could be shared. Friendships like that are rare, but at least some found them in solidarity. It was what so many of us really needed at that time. And it came through this little free-to-play, cash shop-supported anime game. That's part of what's so amazing about this to me. I have to think this was God's hands in events. And I know not everyone watching this is going to be religious, but even if you don't believe in God, call it fate, call it karma, call it freakish coincidence of the universe, whatever you want to call it. It was miraculous. It was one of the greatest things I've seen in my life, just this chain of events coming together and helping these people. Almost every step of the way in the founding of Solidarity, there are events that I know should have happened differently. Things that, had they gone as by all reason they should have, none of this would have happened. I should have joined the guild on Molly's server. I should have let Arena lead. When I did go on my own, the guild should have failed spectacularly because of that. Even if it did somehow work, maybe by the efforts of others, I should have been a recluse of a leader. But nothing that should have happened is what actually happened. It was like my world was turned upside down, all my expectations inverted, but in a good way, in a helpful way. And I'm under no delusions. I know these stories weren't filled with happy endings, but it got some of my friends through their darkest times. For most of them, I don't know what has happened to them since. Mabinogi and Solidarity helped pick them up then, and it's not there now. But at least it was there then. I'm just giving a sample. Granted, I'm probably cherry-picking the most dramatic examples, but in the little things too, we helped each other. We supported each other. The main point of this video, why this is still with me, it's right here. There's a lot I know I've forgotten, working off 10 to 12-year-old memories here, but just what I do remember. I struggled too, not in the dark places that a lot of my friends did, not in that way, but they helped me as well. I grew tremendously as a person, especially socially, not even just within the guild. Inter-guild events, striking up conversations with random passerbys. There were so many people and so many stories. I owe so much to these people. I might be the most affected of anybody, actually, because I went from being so socially withdrawn to having a safety net, having this social circle and expanding it and learning how to work with these people and learning how to lead, learning how to resolve conflict and being comfortable with that, and learning how to interact with other guild leaders and to coordinate, and just the basic social skills that I really was lacking in. And with that came both skills and confidence. That may be surprising to some, as anyone who knows me knows I'm not the most socially confident. People who have known me for a long time know I'm a lot better now than I was 10 years ago. What even fewer know is the vast difference between post-Mabinogi and pre-Mabinogi. I started college when I was 16. I played Mabinogi when I was 19. It wasn't like I had no social opportunities before. I know the before and after, and there was a change. And I've formed friendships, so many, that Solidarity helped me with. People that I'm still friends with today. Justin F., I think you might be one of the people, more likely than most, to have made it this far in a video about some anime video game. I don't know if we'd be friends right now, or ever, if it wasn't for Mabinogi, if it wasn't for Solidarity. Michael, Nathan, others. Real life friendships from college. And I haven't even mentioned the biggest consequence of all. While I was playing Mabinogi, while I was around this support structure, I was a student at a Christian university. one of the requirements was some form of community service. I ended up fulfilling that requirement by volunteering at a kids' fall festival at a local church. And I went into that first day to work the festival with the thought that it was maybe an opportunity. Some of my friends in Solidarity had been trying to really urge me to get out more, to make more social connections in real life, to move past my shyness. They knew that I was in college, but didn't really talk to anyone or have connections there. And I think that concerned them to some extent, and they really tried to push me to do something about that. I knew that once I'd finished my day at the festival that they would ask me how it went, and I didn't want to have to tell them that I just stayed hidden away in the corner as much as possible and kept to myself. I wanted to be able to tell them that I listened to them, that I had made an effort, and that I had at least tried to be a little social. I went into it with a mindset of I want to really make my friends proud of me, that I wanted to show that I could grow and that I had listened to them and that I had made an effort. While working the festival, I was partnered with someone, and I remember being so infatuated with her. But of course, shy me, where was that going to go? It was something that went on for a little while, as there were multiple days to the festival. And each night, I'm talking about it with my closest friends in Mabinogi. Hey, I met this person. I told them all about her. I remember one particularly, Fundelmar. I was telling him about some of the things she was doing and saying, and I was like, am I crazy, or she may be showing some interest or something? And he was like, dude, you're nuts. Ask her. She clearly likes you. Get out there. And everybody I talked to about her was telling me, come on, man, how can you not see this? I'm 100% positive that had it not been for them, had not been for the previous year and a half of experiences from Solidarity, I would not have pursued a relationship with the person who has now been my wife for the past 9 years. Not just because of a few encouraging comments while I was trying to work up the nerve to ask her out, but from 2 years of support and growth. Just talking about this brings up so many emotions for me. Between just me and my wife and the people that I know were helped, I feel I have good reason to call this experience one of the most impactful times of my life. For me, my relationships, Mabinogi was training wheels. If you know my wife, you can talk to her. She'll tell you, when we first met, how socially awkward I was. She only knew what 2 years pre-Mabinogi me was like. She can tell you, as we dated and continued, how I've grown, and how even after we got married to now, I've grown. If you know me now, you know I'm still a bit socially, I'm not the best. I'll never be outgoing, that's for sure. But I don't want to think where I'd be now if I never found this game, if I never found these people. Not even never found the game. What if I decided, you know what? I've hardly done anything with this character. Let me just switch. Let me end this character on Riley and create one on Molly. Join that other guild. Become another face in the crowd. Like I've done so many times before. As I've done in games since. Just be another member. One of the quiet ones. Just watches others. It's kind of funny. I'm better in real life now, but I can hardly imagine forming a guild like this. What I did 12 years ago as a complete socially inept person. Imagine now, after 12 years of growth, doing what I did then. Like, I could see doing it, but it'd be so hard. I just have to see what I call the hand of God in my life in this. So with that, the main core of the story has been told, but if I stop the video here, it'd be a story without an ending. And I wish I could say that's the way it was. I had this time 10 years ago, and we've kept through. We're in touch, and I still have these friends to this day, but no, I don't. And there are several reasons for that. The end of solidarity is just as much a part of who I am now and in the future as everything else I've talked to up to this point. I've already mentioned the increased drama in the guild. Cracks were starting to show. But none of those issues were the death knell. You know now how impactful it was, how much solidarity meant to me and others. It would take a lot to break that. In some ways, the end came in two parts. I had been personally disappointed with some updates in the game, the direction it seemed to be going that, in my opinion, discouraged good role-playing. Those issues alone, though, weren't that important, but certainly didn't help that they did start to appear at just the worst time. Out of character was becoming a real burden. It was around this time that some of the heaviest issues came. I mentioned earlier the time I stayed up past 2 a.m. to help a friend. And you may think, college student, they stay up all the time. No, I didn't. That was not me. That's never been me. I only did so then because of how badly I wanted to help them. How scared I was for them. I needed to make sure nothing bad happened to them that night. But I remember being so tired the next day. And it wasn't just that day. It was becoming a real, consistent drain on me to try to help them. This person had some of the toughest, most serious issues. I really tried to get them into counseling or therapy. I did all I could. But after months of trying to convince them to seek help, hours almost every night talking to them about these things, I began to question. I really became concerned that I was perhaps, in part, keeping her from getting the help she needed. I was concerned that she didn't think she needed any additional help, in part because I was being so much help to her. And I was also getting to the point that I was thinking, I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's not healthy for me. It's wearing me out. And I don't know how long I can go on, how long I can keep this up, especially when I'm not sure it's even helping. It might even be hurting her. And I didn't know what to do. But eventually, I made the decision that I had to pull back. I had to focus more on my own life, my studies, my girlfriend, my job. Most of all, I could not keep being this horrifically unqualified therapist to this girl that desperately needed well-qualified expert therapy. So I made the decision that I had to end it. And in retrospect, maybe I could have, for the sake of other relationships, just said to her that the hours on AOL, the email messaging, all that had to stop. Just keep it to the game. Limit it that way instead of breaking off completely. But no, I don't think that would have worked. And it was hard. This person was a close friend. I really valued her, and she really valued me. Trying to dial back a friendship but still keep it open a little bit, I didn't see that working. I felt that one of us had to go. And there was no question it had to be me. And I'm not blaming this person at all. It was my decision because I thought it was best. I decided to leave. Part of me massively regrets that decision. I know I had to break things off with this person, and I didn't see any way to do that without leaving the game. I certainly could have kept playing as maybe another character, started fresh, but that would have been pointless. It wasn't the game I was sad to leave, it was my friends. And I couldn't even explain the real reason why I was leaving, not to my other friends. I felt that I would risk further damage to their relationships with this person, and I couldn't possibly risk that. If I even accidentally took a torch to her other friendships while also cutting off my own, I don't even want to think what that might have caused, what that might have done to her. There was no way I was going to take any chance that that could remotely happen. So I left. I said my farewell to the guild without ever explaining the real reasons why I was leaving. I gave other reasons that were true, that they just weren't the whole story. And this is where we come to the part of this tale that is my deepest regret about this whole thing. If I had the chance to go back and do it differently, I would. Somehow I would. I didn't just cut it off with this one guild member, this one friend. I cut it off with everybody. I wrote in my farewell letter, hey, if you want to keep in touch, here's my aim. But that was half-hearted. I didn't make the effort these people deserved. I wish I'd kept up with these people more. And that's part of what really wears on me now. I lost contact with so many. I mean, I know it was just online, pure internet relationships. Technically, I don't even know if a lot of these stories are real. I was in a role-playing guild. People could have been role-playing out of character, too. But I don't for a second believe that. I really don't. To keep it up for so long, so many conversations, so many hours across so many days, weeks, months, I don't believe that for a moment. It brings in the question, were they real friends? They were. They truly were. And even if only half of them, a quarter of them were, some smaller fraction, that's still far too many friends to lose for no reason. And that is probably why I've never really been able to let this go. I think part of the reason I didn't make more of an effort at the time may have been I didn't want to be questioned too much about why'd you leave, come back, and all of that. And I wanted to protect my friend. Frankly, though, a lot of it is I wanted to focus my time and energy on my girlfriend. My first serious relationship. Naturally, that demanded more time. Once I did move on from Mabinogi, once I did let that go, I had a hard time really keeping up with interests and hobbies of my own. And this is not all a reflection on my girlfriend, now my wife. Not at all. This was just me having a hard time learning how to balance life and relationships with personal interests. It took me a few years to really get that down. It wasn't until we'd been married a couple of years that I really figured that out, before I felt like I had a good grasp of personal balance. And by then it was too late. By then, I felt it had been too long to reach out. And there it sat. For a long time. The years passed. Regularly, every year or two, I'd get nostalgic. I'd think about Mabinogi again. I'd go on YouTube and load up videos of the soundtrack, listen to the music, see some of the art and screenshots. I'd go through my own screenshot folder, visit the guild website, just look, kind of check in, see what happened. And I don't know the full story of what happened. I know some things. There had been some drama involving Tsume before with the guild. No need to go into details, but I wasn't too surprised when I learned he split off from Solidarity to make his own sister role-playing guild. Some other members jumped ship as well. I'm not sure clearly who, but I think the guild kind of had a split. And just in general, things really declined. I never saw a whole lot of website activity after I left. There was some. We'd see new member applications and some members talking amongst themselves, but never saw a lot from my old friends. Mostly Oren and Ravana, who were the main officers after I left. They continued to run things for a while. But I don't know, I get the impression it just kind of trended down. I'm sure there were adventures that I'll never know. Amazing in-character events. Sit-downs around the campfire, just talking. Both in character and out. They were good times, I'm sure, after I left. But I think it did start the end. Certainly, by 2013, it appears like it was dead from what I could tell. No new messages on the forums, and thus they were the spam bots left unchecked, unmoderated. I would continue to look in on the forums. I would go over old screenshots and music, think about those times. Feel some regret, some nostalgia. Try to remember the good times. Try to remind myself why they had to end, and try to move on. That is until 2020. Until this year. I don't know, it's weird. I think it had been a long time since I last waxed really nostalgic. And one day, out of the blue, it just hit me. I went looking and went through the soundtrack, screenshots, all of that. I tried to find the guild website, and I couldn't find it. And I felt a real sense of loss in this. I thought, no, this can't be disappearing. It was too important to vanish. After digging deeper for a while, I was able to find it. It had been renamed. The website was always on a subdomain of guildlaunch.com. And now the subdomain had been prepended with GL removed 1. I assume that means it's on death row, marked for deletion. I've since downloaded a local backup of the website, so at least I'll have it in my own files should they delete it. But that feeling just wouldn't go away. That nagging, that longing, that thought that I've got to do something. I went looking, I was curious. Is Mabinogi still running? I wasn't seriously going to play, but I thought it could be a trip down memory lane. And I found it was. I created a new account just to experience things again. Just seeing that old login screen. Logging in, seeing the character creation. Creating a character that looked like my old character. Seeing the starting town again, Tirocanael. Starting to walk through it, talking to the NPCs. All of it. My heart ached with emotion. Just what it all meant. What I had. And I'm thankful for what I had. But also experiencing the sense of loss. Wanting. Regret that connections weren't maintained. Connections weren't kept. And still, I still felt like I had to do something. 10 years on, too late. But I've got to try. So I went on the old guild website. The PM system appeared to still work. I PM'd all the members I remotely knew with a message. Here's my email. I'm reaching out after far too long. I'm sorry, but I want to reconnect. And if not, that's fine, but I at least want to say thank you. And I sent that out. I don't know for sure if anyone actually got it, or if they did, that they would ever see the notification. But I had to try. I checked the login activity to the website and was surprised to see that there was one person, Tsuma, whom, as I mentioned, had spun off to his own guild, wasn't even a part of Solidarity anymore. But he had actually logged in about a year ago. Perhaps he or someone else will return and see the message. I logged back into Mabinogi on my old account this time. I could still see the guild list. And the vast majority on there, the game showed, hadn't logged in for over 15 weeks, which is the farthest back the game shows. But there were two from the old days, Alyssa and Lothari. They logged in 6 weeks ago at that time. 6 weeks. They logged in 2020. I don't know if they actually play the game or just checking up on old friends like I was or what. No idea. But I had some hope that maybe, just maybe, they would sign in again and I could reach them. So I sent them in-game messages. And then there were 3 people that I had email addresses for. So I reached out to them as well. I had done all I could. In-game PMs, guild PMs, emails. And a day later, one person responded. One answered. And that's one more than I dared hope for. I'm still in contact with someone from Solidarity. This particular person had actually quit the game before I did, but to me, they'll always be a member. More importantly, they were and are a good friend. We just exchange emails back and forth, so sort of pen pals now, I guess. But at least I have some connection. And that helped. Talking again to this person definitely helped. And I continue to hold out hope that someone else will respond. Zuma checked in on the website a year ago. Maybe he checks in every year or two, like I used to. And maybe a year from now he'll check in again, see the PM, respond. Maybe. Lissa and Lothari logged in 6 weeks ago. Maybe they check in once a year. Maybe in another 46 weeks or so they'll log in, see your PM. Maybe they'll answer. Or maybe not. I certainly can't expect anything after all this time. I've already gotten more than I should expect by hearing from one. So I still have one connection open. More than even that one connection, as precious as that one connection is, I had the memories. And I had the personal development and the growth. And yet, still, it was not enough. I don't know why. But I feel compelled to tell the story. I think that this video is what I'm being driven to do. I mentioned earlier that I'm religious. I believe in God and His direction and His hand in my life. I fully believe God was behind these events. He orchestrated the nonsensical actions, the baffling choices I made, the coincidences that resulted in this best time in my gaming life and the impact it's had on me. The origin that almost every social connection I've made since can be traced back to. Mabinogi shouldn't have been anything special to me. It's just a game that should have joined the ranks of dozens of other MMOs I've tried over the years. Solidarity is something that should not have happened. Seriously, there's no way it should have ever been created. Not with me as the leader, the way I was then. And at least if it was, it should have crashed and burned in no time. But it did happen. And many people are the better for it. Especially me. And I have to wonder, is God at work again? I don't know. But I do know that I feel compelled to make this video. I feel compelled to tell this story. And to me, to those impacted by these events, I firmly believe it is a story well worth the telling. And I hope, at least in some way, for anyone who's made it to the end, it was a story worth hearing.